Maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
The simulation theory, the theory that life, Earth, and our universe as a whole is all part of an AI simulation. Philosopher Nick Bostrom at Oxford University popularized this theory with his paper titled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" At first, it might sound completely crazy, and even I don't fully know how I feel about it yet. However, I do know that the deeper you dig, the more plausible it all seems. There are some important things which must be taken into consideration for the simulation theory. First, serious technologists predicted that enormous amounts of computing power will be available in the future. We must assume this to be true. Next is the assumption of substrate independence. This denotes that the mind is a dynamic process. It is not tied to a specific set of atoms which make up the brain, as the body replaces them often. Consciousness does not need to be in the form of a carbon-based biological neural network. Silicon-based computer processors could, in principle, do the trick. Finally, the universe does not need to be simulated down to the quantum level. Only whatever is required to look and feel real. Take a wall, for example. Like every material, it is theorized to be made up of countless atoms. However, simply programming some rules for a wall would be enough to make us believe it's real. We can't see the atoms anyway. It just needs to look, feel, and act like it would be expected to. Each individual brick doesn't even have to be rendered in unless the wall is sliced into. Now take this concept and apply it to every single object. Everything has a set of physical laws that it follows, which can be programmed. Just take our modern video games as proof of concept. They're made to look and feel real, and they succeed at doing so with only our current computing power. An important question for all of this is, why run a simulation in the first place? Well, let's look at some examples from our world. If we had powerful enough computers and well-written code, scientists might want to study the state of the world under different conditions. Like, what would have happened if Germany won the Second World War? Or maybe, what would happen if the Anglo-French War in 1783 didn't end with a peace treaty, but rather with France's victory? Maybe we'd all be speaking French, right? But what else? We could even think of more interactive examples. Imagine running multiple simulations which try to replicate our world as close as possible. We can look further down the simulated timeline and try to make predictions of our futures, and prepare for any catastrophes or avoid them entirely. There are countless uses for running massive-scale AI simulations in all sectors of society. Like how a new product would react in the market, or how different responses to our pandemic would affect the case numbers. Why should we consider this theory to be possible? Well, simply because of probability. If at one point in time, simulations could be created, and then those artificially intelligent civilizations could create their own simulations, we would have a simulation within a simulation, and this cycle would then repeat itself millions and billions of times. So then, what are the odds that we are in the base reality that started it all? It would be 1 in billions. This all might sound really confusing, but here's how Neil deGrasse Tyson laid it out on a talk with Larry King.
You look at our computing power today, and you say, I have the power to program a world inside of a computer. Well, imagine in the future where you have even more power than that, and you can create characters that have, for example, free will, or their own perception of free will. So this is a world, and I program in the laws that govern that world. That world will have its own laws of physics and chemistry and biology. Now, you're a character in that world, and you think you have free will, and you say, I want to invent a computer. So you do. Hey, I want to create a world in my computer. And then that world creates a world in its computer. And then you have simulations all the way down. So now you lay out all these universes and throw a dart. Which of these universes are you most likely to hit? The original one that started it, or the countless simulations, the daughter simulations that unfolded thereafter? You're going to hit one of the simulations.
This idea of living in a false reality has created some cool online communities. One of my friends introduced me to a subreddit called Glitch in the Matrix on reddit.com. Here, people share weird stories in their lives that made them feel as if they experienced a glitch in our world. Here's 2 short posts from there. About a year ago, I was at work helping 2 customers fill out some paperwork. They were both Chinese, but one spoke 0 English, and the other was translating for him. I set the paper in front of them, and I looked down to grab a pen. As I was looking down, I heard one of them clear as day, "Where do I sign my name?" So I looked up with the pen and said, "You sign your name right here, sir." The translator looked shocked and said, "You speak Mandarin?" I had no idea what to say. I was just as confused and shocked as he was. I made up an excuse and said, I assume that's what he said, to hide how mind blown I was. But no, I completely heard and understood him. I don't think he believed me either, because he kept giving me that look. It still freaks me out to this day. Another user wrote, "I have 4 kids. I know I have 4 kids. But recently I just feel like there should be another one, but it's missing. When we go out, I head count and get flustered because I can't find the extra one. I have to consciously remind myself there are only 4, but my heart just doesn't believe it. Well, I just put it down as one of those weird feelings and push it aside. Then, my parents sent money to my kids. They sent $500. I called them and asked them why they put in so much. They were confused and said, they told me they were going to send $100 per kid. I reminded them that I only have 4 kids. They were silent for a moment, and then just kind of laughed and said they must be getting old because they were thinking there was 5. Then tonight, my daughter walked into the lounge room. She looked around and said, I know we're all here, but our family feels small. My son agreed. I hadn't said anything to anyone about my feelings lately because they already think I'm ancient and forgetful at 40. Those are just some shorter stories which I thought would be good to share, but there are some longer ones on there that really gave me goosebumps as I read them. I would definitely consider checking some out. Have you ever experienced anything like this? Weird, unexplainable stories that just send chills down your spine when you think of them? But now what? What does this all mean to us? If we truly are living in a simulation, does it change anything for us at all? No, it really doesn't. Whether we've been flesh and bones, or a program made to look and feel like flesh and bones, our lives don't change whatsoever. Reality is whatever we know it to be. To an ant, reality is completely different than to a human. This is all just something interesting to think about. Once you really lay it out in your head, you can see how possible it could be. I wouldn't let any of it scare you though, because, again, it has no effect on our lives whatsoever. But just keep an open mind. We spent this course learning about AI, its uses, its limitations, its needed regulation, and how it could end up shaping our world in the future. But what if we are artificial intelligence?